Fred Brophy boxing tent champion Brettlyn the Beaver Neal is now gearing up for the biggest fight of her life as she's set to contest the North Queensland seat of Cook in the upcoming Queensland election. Now, Beaver, who's been endorsed by Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party, she's got a colourful career, including work as Rockstar Pink's former bodyguard and, of course, living in Indigenous communities, working towards Aboriginal advancement. She joins me now. Can I call you Beaver?
You can certainly call me Beaver.
All right. Why did you want to get into politics, Beaver?
I think I've worked in the communities and up in Cook for a long period of time, and I've just noticed a lot of people getting taken advantage of, and I think the only way to have a true voice and really help people is to take the next step, and that's politics.
What about the issues? What are the big issues for the people of Cook? What are you going to deliver that makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd?
Well, firstly, Cook's a very large electorate. It's about 1,000 kilometres from the base up to the tip, and then we've got to get on a helicopter and head over to the islands. So the issues are different from the remote Indigenous communities down to the major parts like Port Douglas and Mossman. So very different. Up in the communities, we need to look at our health. To get a helicopter, you have to get a plane ride to get an X-ray in some of these places, so that's very concerning. And then obviously our economy down in our touristy areas like Port Douglas, we definitely need to work on our growth and our business and jobs as well, in both local and in the communities. Jobs is a big area that we need to look at in educating the locals in the area to be able to fulfil the jobs, like in the mining up in Weipa, and not having people from down south flying in.
What about Pauline Hanson? Why do you admire her, and what attracted you to One Nation, Beaver?
I think what's attracted me to One Nation is the fact that I can have my own voice. I don't have to be a puppet, and I can speak my mind, and if I've got an issue, then I can bring it up. And I actually travelled with Pauline up the Cape 2 years ago, and I really like the fact that she's a real human being. We actually camped. There was no media coverage or anything. We camped, and she was well respected in the area. So I think having a leader like Pauline and letting me speak for myself and not having to say what other people want definitely was a draw card.
Now, there are real parallels between boxing and, of course, the bear pit of state parliament. You've got to be tough. You'll be on the ropes. There'll be times when, you know, you're going to be flawed and you're going to have to get back up. What do you take from boxing, and how do you apply that to politics?
Well, just like the Australian emblem, I would consider myself a bit of a kangaroo, so I definitely won't be taking a backward step. But boxing is something, it's given me discipline, it's given me respect, so I can definitely respect and then have the discipline to back up my actions and definitely not take a backward step.
Now, we talked about issues there earlier, but, you know, you're very close to the Indigenous community. Health and education and, of course, youth crime are big aspects. Domestic violence, big aspects of keeping the Indigenous community happy. How would you tackle those as a One Nation MP?
I think you need to listen to the communities individually. Something that might be happening in Arakoon has got nothing to do with Kowanyama, so working closely with the mayors and traditional landowners is very important to establish future plans for the area. I think the alcohol management plan is definitely something that needs to be looked at these areas. You can't have alcohol in the areas. The crime rate increases because they're bringing it in, and then things like domestic violence is increasing as well. So being told what you can and can't do, we definitely need to look at the alcohol management plan.
That's an area I think that One Nation has done very well at, controlling the messaging around trying to help Indigenous communities, particularly around, as you say, domestic violence and that alcohol restriction issue. It's certainly a big one. And, of course, the youth, the young kids that are in those communities. We need to break the cycle, don't we, Beaver?
Yeah, we certainly do. I've worked extensively in a lot of the Indigenous communities, and a lot of the kids are bored and have nothing to do, and there's nothing being brought into these places. Education in schools, the schools and Education Queensland are doing tremendous jobs in trying to bring the kids to school, but it needs to be a whole community approach, and to break the cycle, you can't just start at one part. It's a cycle, it's going around. It's got to come in from a couple of different angles. We need to educate the parents. We need to have the kids educate the kids and let them know, both parties knowing how important education is. And then they can have the jobs that are in the areas like the mining up in Weipa. But, yeah, without a whole community approach, it will never work.
Now, you've been in security, of course. You've been a bodyguard to some very famous people, including the rock star Pink and, of course, some really famous surfers. That must be a very rewarding career.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've learnt a lot. Travelling, I guess you're always learning, but being able to travel overseas and see what the athletes put up with on and off the field, so to speak, yeah, it's rewarding. But now it's time to do something that's probably, at the end of the day, will be a lot more rewarding if I can help people on a much larger scale.
Well, Beaver, this will be your toughest fight. It's not easy politics. It's a very difficult arena, but clearly you've got plenty of ticker, and I'm sure you'll resonate in that particular electorate because you're a straight shooter, just like Pauline Hanson. So I guess at the end of the day, we'll leave it to Beaver. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to talking to you soon.